and welcome back to File New. This is the first episode of 2025. Great to have you here. My name is Ryan Selvy. File New is the show that is your best source of design, art, and tech news. Everything you need to know to stay up to date, to be a evolving artist. We got a lot of stuff to go through today, and I'm really excited to be back after a nice needed break for the holidays, and I hope everyone's having a great Happy New Year. This is available on YouTube and on Behance as a live stream, but also if you're watching it as a replay or listening to it as a podcast, I'm going to make it worth your time. So without further ado, let's go and hop into our first segment, which is news. So as far as news goes, we're going to start off hot with some Adobe news. This is coming with a Photoshop update. Adobe is launching a private beta for something that's brand new and coming to Photoshop. If you want to be a part of it and you want to have insider knowledge, doesn't matter if you have prior Photoshop experience or not. If you are a brand new Photoshop user, you've wanted to get to know Photoshop, or if you've been in Photoshop for decades. Everyone is welcome, and if you're interested, you should go to the tinyurl.com/NDA Photoshop community. I said the tiny URL, but I meant just tinyurl.com. With this stream and all previous streams up to a point, there is a raindrop that we have, and I'll actually be showing it on stream a lot today. But if you want to get any of the links, it's just right under episode 73 here, and you can see that it has everything that we talk about in previous episodes as well. So if you're listening or watching episode 59 for whatever reason, you can also see the stuff. If you scroll down, everything will have a tag. You just go to join the Photoshop beta. This in particular, since it's nice and private, is going to have a pre-release agreement just to make sure that you're not leaking anything to the big presses before everything's ready to go. But it's a really good community. We're excited to have you here, and we would love to have your thoughts on something before it gets launched, because you are the artists that are most engaged and interested, especially if you're here watching Adobe Live, and we would love to get your input before something pops up. But also, speaking of Adobe and their relationship with artists, recently Adobe sat down with Creative Block, which is one of my favorite blogs, to discuss their approach to artificial intelligence. So Alexandru Costin is the Vice President of Generative AI and Sensei at Adobe. And to pull a few quotes from the article, I'm not going to go through the entire article because the entire article is going to be a good little read for you, but it answers a lot of questions, tackles some hard-hitting questions that, I feel like are really important to address. But he says in one part specifically that we understand that some creators are concerned about generative AI, and we're committed to addressing these concerns while fostering confidence in tools we create. He also said generative AI is already transforming the creative process, giving creators tools to push boundaries, work more efficiently, and realize their visions faster than ever. At Adobe, we believe AI is here to support and enhance human creativity, not replace it, by enabling artists to create their best work while ensuring they get full credit for it. They discuss regulation, training, content credentials, safeguards for infringing on copyrighted works, and more. If you are interested in checking out where Adobe stands on these issues and these things that are a huge part of all of these AI systems, it's a really great article to read, and it's just nice to see the inside of kind of where Adobe is going, how Adobe views it, and how Adobe is trying their best to listen to artists and move forward with a new technology that is seemingly everywhere. But that is neither here nor there, and I'll let you go ahead and read it, linked in the raindrop in the event that you want to check it out. But while we have you here, this is on Adobe Live. Adobe Live is a great resource to learn how to use new tools, and the Motion Design Hotline guys are guys that are here to help you out with anything that you need to know about motion design. They had an episode earlier today, and they were kind enough to record a little promo, so check it out.
It's the 100th episode of the Motion Design Hotline this week. That's right. Kyle, you and I have suddenly turned 100, I guess.
100. We are old.
That's right. We are centenarians, at least in terms of show count. So if you want to see the 100th of this, check out the Motion Design Hotline. There have been 99 episodes, and tips ain't one. So that's what we're doing this week.
Yeah, this episode is all about After Effects tips like this one, and of course, more that are a little more actionable than that. But you should, of course, watch Motion Design Hotline. This happened just a little bit before you're watching it right now, but you can always watch the replay. You can watch all of it. Useful After Effects tips are always good to rewatch, remember, and catch us every week.
Yeah, and I'm
Almost
sure
every week.
it'll be chopped down into snackable content that people can use and reuse and enjoy. Yum 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 yum. Just consume it in all of 1 minute increments throughout your day. Anyway, see y'all soon.
Oh, I love those guys. They are such a hoot to watch, and they also are very informative. You'll learn a lot while going through it. They are industry professionals. They're regarded well in the industry, so they're your direct access line. When they're live, you can just hop in the chat, and you can talk to them whenever. To that point, this is a live stream. If you are watching it live, would totally love and appreciate to hear where you're watching from, and just say hello in the YouTube chat, because it helps the mighty algorithm recommend this stream to others, and helps us get a little bit more traction so that we can continue bringing great news to you. Next up on our news, I want to talk a little bit about CES, which is happening January 7th, which was yesterday, all the way until this Saturday, January 11th, the day after my birthday. CES is an annual trade show organized by the Consumer Technology Association, and it's held in January at the Las Vegas Convention Center in Winchester, Nevada. It is the Consumer Technologies Association's time to bring everyone together and talk about a lot of really cool new technology that is on the forefront of evolving new technologies, and really experiment with things that they are announcing and launching, things that come down the line, things that you will see from some of the gigantic companies that are shaping the way that we're using technology and creating, and other things that are just concepts that may never even see the light of day, but they want to get it in the hands of people, press, consumers. And thank you, Yume CO over in, or Yumiko over on YouTube, for saying hello. And it is really exciting to see all the things that are coming down the line. So a few things that are pretty notable in this year's so far. We're only a day into it, but most notably NVIDIA, which is the world's most valued company, surpassing Apple to get that title a little bit ago, probably I think like in November or so. They had a very big event, and they announced lots of things. Three of the things that come to mind immediately are an AI personal computer that kind of looks like a Mac Mini that sits on your computer and can run all of NVIDIA's works. They announced a bunch of new GPUs, which is your graphics card, which helps you create really intensive things, especially if you are not just playing video games, but if you are making video edits, if you're doing motion graphics, if you're doing 3D, all of those are all going to be using your GPU. And they also have a focus on a humanoid robot. They stood on stage with 10 robots behind him. But the big announcement, I think, that is most important to creators is the new GeForce 50 series. There is a $2,000 one, and then there's a bunch of other ones that are a little bit cheaper. So as it stood, we had the RTX 40 series, and there is an RTX 5090, that's the 2000. You're going to have the 5080, which is 1000. You have the 5070, which is 749, and the 5070 at 549, which is one of those things where it's like technology is always getting better, but it is crazy that something that is as powerful as the 40 series was more expensive than that last year, and now the new ones is crazy, and it's way cheaper. This is all things that are kind of be expected. You can see here with a bunch of technical jargon as to what that anticipates. But one of the big things that really stood out to me is that the 4080, which is one of their big boys from last year, had a memory bandwidth of 736 gigabytes per second, and their lowest cost one that just came out is 960 gigabytes per second. But all the way at the top, they have 1,792 gigabytes per second, which is just... This is going to open up the ability to do a lot more intensive work, do a lot more 3D work, which we're continuing to see pop up a lot. seeing a lot of motion graphics that have a million gajillion layers. This is all things that can happen with GPUs. And also their form factors getting smaller and smaller. The one that I have in my system that I have built actually has to have like an individual thing to prop it up so that it doesn't bend and snap my motherboard. They managed to get a lot of stuff into a very small form factor. And even if you don't fully understand technology, you don't build computers, this is still exciting for you. This is stuff that will continue to be replicated in the things that you are using. If you use any Windows machine, you also have this kind of in parallel with any of the M4, M5 chips that are happening. The M4 chips are meant to come to MacBooks sometime this year, and then it's rumored and expected that M5 chips will come to them next year. If I'm sounding like I'm just saying random things, that's totally fine. It's just exciting to basically understand that these are continuing to get more powerful. They are continuing to get more accessible. Obviously, $2,000 is a lot of money, but that is unthinkable from 5 years ago. And something that is just kind of exciting to see. And I'm excited to see what creators make out of that in the coming years. Staying on CES, I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea that the form factor of glasses are really they're in their heyday. This is, I guess, the hot time for anything glasses form factor. Basically, Ray-Bans were teaming up with Meta, and they were creating these glasses that have cameras on them and AI with microphones so that you can look at things and you can take pictures or videos and you can ask about the world around you. You can have music play, and they took off because they look just like Ray-Bans. They look like regular glasses, and they were not the full headset, but they were giving information and feedback without it being a huge thing on your face. They really took off. They sold really, really well. We talked in previous episodes about how Ray-Bans actually are now have an extended partnership with Meta because they're going to continue to create them. Basically, all these other tech companies said, wait a second, we understand what you're doing. We want to try it at our own. But the one that's catching a lot of people's attention is this Halliday. And Halliday are these AI smart glasses with lens-free AR viewing. So let's break that down. What do you mean lens-free AR? Augmented reality, that's the idea of merging both your reality and augmenting something. Think like Pokemon Go, that was a big one, where like Pikachu runs around your environment. It's still your bedroom, but there's a Pikachu there. But this is also really adapting into what Apple was really leaning into with the Vision Pro, the idea that you could have these windows and you could pin them atop the stove when you're working on cooking something, and you can reference the recipe. These all previously up until this point were focusing on design that focused on a screen, that you looked directly at a screen was close to your face, and you saw the screen. As designers, we always are changing the ways that we are designing things. If you look back on how web design has changed over the years, when you look at websites from the late 90s to how they look now, it is radically different, and it's something that is like an evolving form factor for everyone. Also, thank you to Jenna, Megan, and Oliver, all over on YouTube, for saying hello. And I do see you guys still over on Behance. Also, thank you, Ola. Thanks. Good to have you guys here. Where are you guys all tuning in from is a big question. I'd love to know where you're watching from, and if this is your first show or your 100th show. We're just talking about these glasses that are announced at CES, which is the Consumer Electronics Show. These are a new approach because rather than focusing on lenses in front of you, it's actually shooting a light directly into your eye, which I'm really fascinated to see how this is going to look. And also, if that's going to provide any sort of eye damage, you would assume that if they announced it in any way, that it has to be at least something that people considered. But another big thing about it is, you're from Sweden. Oh, welcome. This is invisible and undetectable. And the other thing about it is the fact that they don't have cameras on the front. So in previous iterations of these different form factors, specifically the Ray-Bans, they all had cameras on them. These are not focusing on cameras. They are just focusing on microphones, but still uses that microphone to then be able to create this technology that then gives you information in your eye so that you can then go off of that. Hello to Wade. Thank you, Wade, for moderating this chat, by the way. Also, hello to Caroline. Robert is also in Sweden. But I don't know. How do you guys feel about this? My big thing that I think about this, and this is some of the connected things that they're saying about via Bluetooth, is Echo Mode, the proactive AI agent, anticipates users' needs and automatically provides suggestions and answers based on context, leading to more effective conversations and meetings. They have audio memos, notifications and instant replies, teleprompters, translation, navigation, music and lyrics, quick notes, retro design. All of this sounds incredible and amazing. You also immediately have to think about bad actors. You have to think about how when you're talking to someone now, they might be reading a script. But these are all realities of things that we're going to be approaching, and that's for a different podcast and a different conversation. For creators, we're just more focusing on how this is going to impact how the things we are going to be creating and how that is going to exist in a new world. In the same way that if you were to say to a graphic designer in the 80s that like a big portion of your viewers were all going to see something on here, you would be like, oh, that's crazy. And how does that apply to me as a graphic designer? But it's always something that is very important to keep in mind. Patrick is tuning in from Switzerland. Ooh, and Piotr is, or is it Peter? Piotr. Is that Peter? That's like Peter, right? Is from Poland. Oliver wants to know how well this AR VR stuff works when people's eyes can't focus that close to their face anymore. Agreed. Apparently they said even no matter your vision, it is going to work with eyes, and it's only $399 to $499, and shipping is expected to begin by the end of Q1 2025, which means it's ready to ship pretty much, which is crazy. A lot of times when these things are announced, they take a long time. This one is like immediately, boom, available. So we'll be interested to maybe even try to just see if I can get my hands on it to try it out, but something that is fascinating nonetheless. But all this talk about headsets, all this talk about glasses, it seems like it's been a really long time since we've talked about Vision Pro, since we've talked about Meta Quest Pro, and that's because the world has actually gone pretty quiet on these things, and the industry for it is trying to figure out if it is a price point situation, if it is a form factor situation, but so much so that this week it hit the news that Meta is discontinuing its $1,500 Meta Quest Pro headset, and this was a headset that was a bit of a response to the Apple Vision Pro, which we talked a lot about, that launched back in February. And the idea was that there was going to be this new form factor of everyone wearing these Vision Pros. Apple did not call it VR. They called it AR. Meta Quest, which was already around, which was very VR heavy, suddenly was also focusing on AR and the idea of looking through your headsets and interacting with the world around you and how that interacts with design. But in this case, it is something that like now we don't know if they're going to just dial it back, if they're going to cut it entirely. Basically, there was another news article in this last week or so that Meta also, that Apple stopped manufacturing new Vision Pros because they weren't selling enough, that they didn't even need to manufacture it. There's rumors that they've stopped working on the Vision Pro entirely, but there's other rumors that are just saying that they've scaled back to a cheaper version of the Vision Pro that they will then launch and maybe see if that catches on more. That said, the Vision Pro software just got updated along with a lot of other Apple OS. So if you have an iPad or a watch or anything, those are all being updated. The design is staying pretty much the same, but the interesting stuff there would be, Apple Intelligence and how the way that we visualize artificial intelligence and assistants and Siri and stuff are all changing aesthetically, and they now look very similar to her and this gradient. And I actually had a friend recently that said that it all looks very similar to kind of like tampon commercials in the 2010s. Hey, Griffin's here. Welcome, Griffin. And Megan's saying that the price point during a time when some people can't buy groceries could totally be a factor. Yes, you have to remember that both the Meta Quest Pro was $1,500 and the Vision Pro was like $3,000 some, I believe. So that's pretty crazy. Kendall's also in the chat over on Behance saying that Google Glass was too early. Now we get this. Yes, if you remember Google Glass, all from, the late 2000s, early 2010s, they were these really nerdy glasses with this little glass in the top side, and people hated them. They got really, really destroyed, and they got discontinued very quickly. It's one of those things where just, a little bit over a decade later, and we've kind of once again returned to that form factor. I think that is just very telling of the fact that we as designers and creators need to be aware that in our lifetime at some point there is going to be augmented reality. Who knows if it's going to be glasses? Who knows if it's going to be immersive screens? Who knows if it's going to be headsets? But something to just always kind of consider and look around the world and look around you and see what you can do to also explore that new form factor. In some other crazy meta news, I'm sure you guys have heard about it. It really was kind of the front of everything about 24 hours ago. Basically, Mark Zuckerberg posted a new reel on his Facebook that was saying that Meta is discontinuing their use of content moderation from third parties. He said that this is the most significant update since the 2016 update. They are instead opting for community notes, which are more similar to X, formerly Twitter, which is crowdsourced information, checking, and then gets updated by users underneath stuff. They have lifted restrictions on critical speech of previously protected minorities, but I think the big change here for creators, if we're talking from a creator sense in a creator podcast, there is a change to automated content moderation systems. Now they are dialed down to only take automated action against things like drugs and terrorism. He said, we used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now we're going to focus these filters on tackling illegal and high severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. So this basically means that your stuff isn't going to get immediately flagged for mild offenses or just for mild things. Instead, they're going to be kind of focusing on using users as a means to report this content. I'll be interested to see how this affects my timeline, how it affects users, especially with photography and videography, which might have previously gotten false flags. But of course, with anything else, taking the rails off of anything can be a very dangerous thing. Trying to stay unbiased here for Adobe, because these are all things that are brought to light from me and brought up in these news based off of things that I find. Adobe does not give me these things. I will say that at the very beginning of the show, when I was mentioning the Photoshop beta, that was provided to me from an Adobe employee, but this is on Adobe Live. That said, things like this, when I'm talking about this story, are only coming from me mentioning them and is not a reflection of Adobe as a company. Just want to be clear about that. Not going to talk more about that, but I am just going to say this is something that will affect you as a creator, as someone online, and it's just something to really be aware of, as this is going to change the landscape of your creations moving forward, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there. Staying on the topic of social media and talking about Meta, though, there was a report that there's going to be a update to Threads, which is going to be displaying custom display names and also cover images, which means that you can add one more resizable graphic to your output when you are doing brand assets, and you have to make a header for, Facebook, for Threads now, for Blue Sky, for X. Anything and everything between. Now there's going to potentially be one more thing where you can put it at the top of your profile, and it can be everything below. Also, thank you to Opiano for the happy almost birthday in the YouTube chat. I appreciate that. And Meta only discontinuing this in the US, by the way, for that previous story. Thank you, Oliver, for pointing that out. The current fact checking will continue as it is in the UK and EU, but not sure about elsewhere. Now, for Threads, this is something that will be updated potentially. This is something that was leaked through X. This is something that normally happens with normal Meta updates, is somebody will kind of highlight it and tag it, and then it'll roll out later. But just something that kind of shows that it's becoming a little bit more like X, or even just like Facebook in other ways, where you can kind of have that cover image. And then our last news story for the day and the last social media thing, and I promise we'll move on, is that the Blue Sky bump from the Exodus is slowing down, but still growing. I biasly say, because I really like Blue Sky. They had an explosive November, as you guys know, but it continues to grow at not the same amount it did at the end of the year. SimilarWeb says that Blue Sky grew less than 10% month over month in December, compared to 189% growth in November. TechCrunch says daily active users of Blue Sky mobile app in the U.S. also grew 12% in December, compared with 284% growth in November, which is all to say it's still growing. It's still a growing platform. It's still something that I believe is worth your time to approach, especially for artists. But it is just going to show you that like these things come and go in waves, and sometimes there are bigger effects than others. So it's just interesting to see. That was a lot of news. We still got about 30 minutes left of this stream, though, and I've got some pretty great resources for you guys this week. So let's go ahead and hop on into resources. The very first resource is coming to us from an Instagram that I saw. This is from AJ Wright, and it's all about inverting things in Adobe Illustrator and showing you that it isn't just as easy as pressing Control-I, which you always can do, but more so there is a better way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. It has some music on it, so I am not going to play the music. I'm just going to talk on top of it. Once again, this is from AJ Wright, known as Hey Adam Design on Instagram. He's showing you that's a way that you can do it when you just like switch the colors of it. But instead, he's drawing a box on top of it and then using the shape tool to get rid of the surrounding. He then goes in and uses a object path offset path to create a border around it with a round edge, and then uses the Pathfinder to take the black, which was previously the other kind of creation, and make it a inverse to then pull from it. I'm going to let it play here maybe like twice more so you can see it a little bit slower. But the thing that's really interesting about here, if you're looking at this image that we're looking at, there is a picture of a snake around like a bomb, and the highlight of the bomb is negative space. So when there is a switch of just changing it to white, it's not as effective when you're looking at it in an inverted area. Instead, it is just changing the colors of the darker areas, so the highlight doesn't read as much as a highlight anymore, especially if it's using negative space. It also is showing that in the side of the snake's mouth, it gets a little bit muddy because the details there are focusing on shadows. By using this method instead, it's just kind of swapping it in your brain. It's adding a surrounding to it of an offset path, which I use a lot for a lot of different things, but then it is really just taking out the shadows of your logo or your creation and making it sure that it stays focused as a shadow rather than just a change color. So with all that said, we're going to just go look at it one more time. I know this is like the third or fourth time it's played, but this is really great. As a resource in entirety, I would really actually recommend AJ Wright. He is Hey Adam Design on Instagram. And he posts a bunch of different stuff. He's really talented, especially with logos and iconography, and I definitely suggest checking him out. He is up and coming in the sense that over the last few weeks that I have followed him, or the last like few months, he is now up to 119,000 followers. He continues to grow and grow and grow. And does it all in a really non-cringy, non-beat around the bush way. These are all ways that he continues to teach people how to use really great software, and really like just gets to the point, and things that I definitely keep saving to my folder that I have that just gives me tutorials. And it's just a really easy way to, as I'm scrolling down between all the pictures of people at beaches and, you know, eating delicious ice cream, suddenly I have a tutorial that pops up. Umacorn saying mine is front with the Pathfinder. Yes, that is the one. Peter's in the Behance chat is saying this may come in handy when working with shadows. Absolutely. Jeff Yass says love that inverted highlight. Oliver says I'm going to have to try this on some stuff I've been doing where I don't like the inverted versions. This might be the answer. So yeah, make sure you check him out. That's not the only resources we have for you today, though. Like I said, we have a bunch for you. Now, I haven't personally tried this next resource because I only saw an article about it. And it is, by the way, you can always, when you're going in here to the raindrop, you can just go up to search. And if you have in current selection, it will just search for the what is being showcased. So you can see that here it's going to pull up the other things that we're going to talk about, which is nice because it's just the 3 bookmarks that we have here in the thing. And this is coming from The Verge. They posted about a magic trackpad for Windows. I know we're talking a lot about Windows stuff today, but guess what, guys? I use a Windows machine. I also miss my Mac, but I also use Windows for a lot of things that I can't use my Mac for. And one of the things that I really miss about having a Mac was the fact that you could get this magic trackpad that you could use multiple fingers on, and you could interact with your desktop computer like you would a regular MacBook. Now, Hyperspace created the Trackpad Pro, and it is essentially just a magic trackpad for Windows. It comes with software that lets users use custom shortcuts and gestures, including app-specific ones, and share them with others so that you can use things in the Adobe Suite, Microsoft Excel, you name it, and be able to then have it reflect more custom experiences, panning, zooming, you name it. And it's $130, which of course is not the cheapest thing in the world, but also I feel like is accessible if you're looking for an investment. Welcome to the chat, Jack. Good to have you here. We are currently just going over our resources right now. We just talked about some tips for Illustrator, and now we're looking at the Hyperspace Trackpad Pro, which is a trackpad that you can use for your Windows machine that feels similar like this. Jack Watson says, who would have thought people would be going out of their way to have a trackpad on their desktop? It all comes down to what helps you create. We have our trackpad warriors. By the way, if you guys have not checked out some of the new shows on Adobe Live, yesterday there was 2 really great ones, and they talk about actually the trackpad warriors of the world. And I know that there are a lot of people who fully believe in that. How about over on YouTube? On YouTube, do we believe in trackpads or do we believe in mice? We'd love to hear what you guys think. And then our other resource that we have here is the ShiftCam Plank, which is a tiny little solid state drive that you plug into the bottom of your iPhone and will let you record ProRes video on your iPhone. This was also announced at CES, and the company calls it the world's smallest portable SSD. This is me quoting Michael Burkhardt from 9to5Mac. It comes just 10 grams and plugs directly into your iPhone's USB-C port. So you just plug it into the bottom of the iPhone, and then it also has its own thing. It offers transfer speeds up to 1,050 megabytes per second and supports recording ProRes at 4K on iPhone 15 Pro and later. It's very small, it's drop proof, it's water resistant, and it makes it so maybe you can record bigger things. It also announced a USB-C hub allowing you to connect multiple SSDs to your iPhone if you would like, if you want to record, I guess, like 8K or something like that. Also, Ola is over on YouTube also saying that trackpad is best. So this is interesting to see kind of the breakdown of that. But they said that from ShiftCam CEO Benson Chu said, our mission with Plank is to eliminate the barriers of traditional storage and empower creators to focus on their craft. We've designed a tool that's so portable and powerful it becomes an invisible yet essential part of any creator's workflow. Peter is saying powerful device, and Jack is saying, oh, that's cute. Cute little SSD. So I would be interested. I don't think they're available yet. They're going to be opening with a Kickstarter campaign next month where you can pre-order them at a lower price. During the pre-order period, you'll be able to grab 1 terabyte for $125 and 2 terabyte for $199. However, they haven't announced the Kickstarter page yet. And like I said, haven't tried this out. This is just at CES. I think it's very cool. And would be interested to see how it plays out. And then the one last resource that we have, I actually have to remember to tag it as a resource because it is not right now. But it is 5 simple steps to get back in it after the holidays. And this is coming from Creative Boom. This is Tom May at Creative Boom. I ran into this last week, especially on the Thursday that I got into work again. It was really hard to kind of get back to it. It's a relatively shorter article, just with 5 different things. The headlines of them are to keep the holiday buzz going And it says, it's not that you hate your work or anything. It's just that you enjoy the holiday so much, you don't want it to end. So if that's the case, then why not find ways to keep the holiday buzz going? It says that marketing designer Anna Pereira goes about her post-holiday transition as saying, I think it's important to make it so the magic doesn't end. Slowly winding it down rather than stopping it all at once tends to help. If you celebrate Christmas, that doesn't finish it until January 6th. And even after that, there's nothing stopping us from making sweets and fancy meals. Well, after the holidays, food always helps. Yeah, like, it's really interesting that the holidays happen at the very beginning of winter, because winter itself is very hard. I feel January through March is very hard for me. Just find things to keep things festive and excited, not necessarily with decking the halls, but finding ways to bring joy. And if you bring joy to the rest of your life, you can bring it into your work. The illustrator Julia Ferrari Ulbrich says, don't go from 0 to 60. I start small with some warm-up illustrations and sketches, she says. No big plans on expectations. It's hard to return with the same energy and pace you were before the holidays, and that's okay. The world is a different pace in January. And prioritize self-care. There is the idea that you should feel less like conquering the world and more like staying in bed. Don't beat yourself up. Instead, focus on small but achievable ways to build yourself back up. Establish a gentle routine that supports and improves your sense of well-being. This might involve setting a consistent sleep schedule, incorporate morning meditation or light exercise, and being intentional about nutrition. There's setting goals for the year. That's always really good. That's coming from Nikki Field, Joint MD at Jelly London. Recommends setting aside the early days of January for this very task. Give space to those first days back to do some goal setting in whichever way works for you. She recommends they can be as loose as possible or shoot for the sky. And then finally, shake things up. January blues are a real thing, says Lily MX Price, creative director and founder at Onami. I really suffer from it. Getting back into creative work can be hard, especially in the cold weather. I love to jump onto a plane and work as a digital nomad for a few weeks to get back into the swing of things. I'd recommend it if you're lucky enough to have remote clients. I'm headed out to Bangkok in January to kick off the work from there. I can't wait to meet other creative people out there and work from there. Which, yeah, man, if you can pay for my Bangkok trip, I'll take it, you guys, and I'll work remotely. It'll be great. We'll do file new from Bangkok. I would love to. So let's start that crowdfunding right now. And Oliver says, I always feel more like staying in bed. That's not a post-holiday specific thing. Amen to that, right? Jack is saying this weather makes me want to stay in bed, cold and dark. And Jeff Yass is also acknowledging that people forget the holidays themselves are hard for half the population and not on vacation. So maybe if that's you, maybe getting back into work is a nice reprieve and not having to deal with the anxieties of holidays or the depression of holidays, which is all very valid. So just keeping in mind that New Year's can be new you, can also be the same you, can also be returning back to things. But on Creative Boom, they have a really nice way to just kind of have some advice on getting back into January, because January can be tough. As far as my personal resolutions, I'm trying to meditate every day. I'm trying to read every day. I'm trying to eat lunch every day, which I know sounds crazy. People are like, how can you not eat lunch? Sometimes I just get too into it and I drink coffee and then I'm not hungry. But they're all things that are achievable for me. You know, I might fall off with meditation or reading, but I also really advocate for the idea of not just doing New Year's resolutions, but doing monthly resolutions. So if I fall off of any of those come February 1st, I kind of revisit them and say, is this something that I still want to do? Like, let's try it again. Ola is in YouTube saying winter is the best season and enjoying the snow. You are like my fiance. You're crazy, but I celebrate your joy. I'm not going to yuck your yum, but yuck. Okay. We got about 15 minutes left, so I want to hop into Rebrand. So under Rebrand, that's when we normally talk about updates to popular brands that are in the conversation. This happened right after our show on December 17th. This is actually on Brand New, which I definitely recommend becoming a member of. I pay, I think, $3 a month for this. Once again, that's a Ryan Selvy acknowledgement, not a Adobe acknowledgement. But this was something that really popped out and did really well. The SanDisk remake or rebrand. SanDisk is the creator of a lot of SD cards, as you know, and it did this kind of updated it's, what is it, slab serif kind of. If you are listening to this and not watching it, basically before this, it was a very sans serif, blocky sans serif font with a missing like backbone to the D and disk. They have kind of taken that one step further and taken the bottom portion of the S off of both S's. So the S is completed through negative space and then a square. So it almost looks like a elevated C with a square on the bottom left. Both S's, that is at the beginning of SanDisk, and the S before the K. There are some very like Art Nouveau, Art Deco vibes to some of the shapes. The A is slanted to the right and doesn't have something that's crossing across of it. The N is both rigid and curvy. The D is once again missing the stem, and the I no longer has a dot at the top or something on the bottom. Kendall is saying, why does this make me think of the KN car style, but it's supposed to be Kia? I, Ryan Selvy, personally think that this is more successful than the Kia, because to me it still reads like SanDisk. My brain maybe just knows what SanDisk is as a company. But hello, Apurva, over in Behance. We have Peter saying they cut the lines, and Jack is saying that's very cool. So what do you guys think? Do you guys feel like this is a good upgrade? I think that it's really nice to see something that is brave. I think too many companies are just kind of going for the sans serif boring typeface. Like, don't get me wrong, I use sans serifs all the time, but the fact that they took some liberties and some chances really make it a identifiable brand, which is very important for a company to make, sure that they are standing out. Something to note in your own designs is at the junction of all of their intersections, they have curved it. So you can see that the N at the connection of both the cross and the stem, it is curved in the same way that the curve is at the top of the A, but even going as far as the curve for the serif on the A is also kind of there, but it still feels very straight, very curvy. It is a connection of the two. Apurva saying, I haven't thought of SanDisk cards since 3 years. Kendall is a little bit more critical of it and seeing that it looks like it says Sand1SK or Sandalisk, which now that you say that, I can also see. But it's just interesting. This was done, I believe, who was this done by? By ELA Advertising, and it was designed in-house. And like I said, there are some really great breakdowns on brand new if you pay for it. I do not want to essentially plagiarize or pirate it, so I can't necessarily show it to you guys. But they do really good write-ups. They do really cool stuff. Love brand new. They've been on Adobe Live before, but this is just kind of one that they've called out. That isn't the only rebrand. We actually have a handful of rebrands today. Speaking of companies that went and created a sans serif creation, Lord&Taylor actually have reversed their sans serif logo and now went back to their iconic cursive signature. This happened back in 2022 when they switched to the sans serif and really lost a lot of its character, made it look a lot cheaper to me. They had gone bankrupt in 2020, and then in 2022 I think there was some changing of some ownership, and now they're bringing it back 3 years later to their signature. Their signature. I love this move. I think Lord&Taylor might not be the most beautiful logo, but it is once again unique. It is once again identifiable, and it also is reminiscent of the brand. The former logo was quoted as saying, the biggest betrayal of the brand, by Regal Brand's global chief strategy officer, Sina Yenel, on a video conference. I understand going after young customers, but this is not a startup, which is why they also brought it back. I think it is a smart move. Megan is saying about the previous story, wow, I was today years old when I learned it was SanDisk, not ScanDisk. That's hilarious. But what can you say? As far as the Lord&Taylor story, Kendall is on Behance saying, I love the word mark with the sketchy style much more. Kendall's also saying, I just find when designers put that much a space of things between the S and the A bothers me a touch, and that is discussing the SanDisk as well. But agrees that this breathes life into the logo with Lord&Taylor, and I believe was the right move. Speaking of other rebrands, Sandals, you guys remember them? The Kelly Clarkson music style company has done some updates to its word marks. This is the before and the after. It really cleaned it up, took out some of the unnecessary extra things that kind of, to me, looked a little bit like image trace. They applied this to their entire brand identity across all verticals. They have created some cool iconography, but I think this in particular looks really well. It looks like it's handwritten, but with having the time taken it, not just kind of like on first write through. Taking things like the A down here and making it less kind of like a 3-point turn and more kind of like just a 2-point turn. Also adding a little bit of flair to the S so that it feels like a continuous thing. The larger S is also cleaned up as well without weird straight lines. I know we just kind of were praising the straight lines of SanDisk, but I like the curviness and relaxation of this one. This is from House Industries, and it has a bunch of different stuff. They applied it to all of their brands outside of just the top brand of sandals. It is already live, so you guys can go and you can check it out. And it is, I think, a very successful rebrand. It looks very nice. In some drama between brands, Puma is pouncing on Tiger Woods' logo design in new lawsuit, and this is from Daniel John at Creative Block. Looking at the two, you can see that there are the Puma that is the iconic Puma, and then you can also look at Tiger Woods' brands, which is I guess technically a tiger, but is looking very Puma-y, and Puma's not happy about it. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this Sunday Red and this Puma are too similar? Do you feel like this is a valid creation, or this is or a valid complaint, or do you feel like this is kind of too much? If you're listening and you can't see the Tiger Woods one, I assume you're familiar with the Puma logo, but for the Tiger Woods one, it is based in lines and doesn't have the bottom part of any of the tiger. It is essentially like 3 lines that then come together with lines that are then vertically placed coming off of those 3 lines. That's a horrible way to describe it, but kind of has the same form factor and direction as Puma is being argued. And it's interesting, and we'll see kind of like where this goes. Kendall is saying that she doesn't see it. She doesn't love the Jack is saying, I don't love the Tiger Woods one. And Wade is saying, not close enough me for concern. Griffin is saying, that's ridiculous over on YouTube. Puma doesn't own the silhouette of a Puma. Let's see if I can like zoom in here. Ignore the advertisements here. These are none that are being paid for. Here we go. Peter's saying, I think they've gone too far. Robert says, not like at all. Kendall saying, if it was a shape of a Puma, I'd say maybe, but it's lines. So as far as this audience goes, people disagree. People say, no, no, no. But something to see. This is a developing story. This was only posted 7 hours ago. And then I'll leave you with one more thing for Rebrand, which is the best logos of 2020s, which was posted by Creative Block as well. And it's a really good write-up of some really beautiful things that have come out in the last 5 years, including one of my favorites, which is the San Francisco Symphony, the Burger King rebrand, which is a focus back to old, and the Threads brand. Bunch of really good stuff. It's linked in the Raindrop as well. We've only got about 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure we hop into our last 2 sections, which is Font of the Week, and then we'll do hyperlinks real quick. So let's hop into Font of the Week. The font of the week this week, available on Typekit, is RL Aqva, I believe. The Aqva is spelled with a V, so it's RLAQVA, and this is designed by Radik Lukasiewicz from Red Luca, And the reason that I picked this one is I thought it was really, really pretty as far as curviness, especially in kind of collective body copy. This is going to be something that you pretty much only use for a headline and display. When I say body copy, I don't mean like an entire book. I just mean more so that they have this like relaxing, refreshing, comforting, cooling effects. And when you look at all the lower cases side by side, it creates a wave similar to kind of like an ocean. But then when you kind of make everything in all caps, it gets rid of that wave, but still breathes into that idea of kind of like moving loosey-goosey letters, kind of like pool noodles. It feels very warm. It gives me a warm vibe on top of a very cold January, and I think can breathe life and personality into something that might feel like it needs that extra. I could easily see this in maybe a toy design. I could see this in vacation related content. I could see this in a beverage, like if this was for like kombucha or something, or if this was for an energy drink or a soda or a seltzer. I think these would all be very good. Same with like face wash or some sort of cosmetic. I think all of these could really, really work. Welcome, Claudia, to the YouTube chat. And just to jump back real quick to the Puma thing, Winter is saying, yeah, how can they claim all Puma-shaped designs? And Kendall says, I'm going to find a use for that typeface in about an hour. Thank you to Wade for posting the link to it. And Jack is saying, ooh, I like that one. And Kendall's also saying, I like that font. So check it out. It's cool. Like I said, it's available on Adobe fonts. And it only comes in one weight. So it is something that's definitely just a headline font. I'll show you guys what it looks like when you write File New, which is always fun to see. Let's see if we can blow up that typeface. I like how the circle of the eye creates kind of an outline underneath the stem. And then also if I make it bigger, it creates some cool stuff that also kind of feels like BTC or ITC Beignet, right? That's what it's called, ITC Beignet. It's, yeah, the one that is Stranger Things vibe. It's giving a little bit of that. Obviously, that one is serif, but in its own way, I think, let's see if we're at Stranger Things. Like, yeah, it's I think it's the T, the H, the I, the N. Yeah, like things in particular looks very, but it, also doesn't look spooky. So, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do about it? And then our very last thing, we have 2 minutes left, is hyperlinks, which is always one of my favorites. So let's do hyperlinks. For hyperlinks today, we're doing Stimulation Clicker. It's all over the internet. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because, guys, it is all part of the experience. But you click it, and as you click it, you create stimulations that you can then like unlock. So like I've clicked this 30 times, this little button that says click me, and then I can even like click and it will then add things to my screen. So I click it once, I get the bouncing DVD player, and that cost me 3. I can add a second one, and the more that I use it, the more it's going to use, and it can make your computer very tired. But as you click more and more things pop up, and it plays with this idea of kind of old internet, new internet, and just a little something. It's created by Neil Funn, who, if you guys remember, we did a bunch of his work. That's 100 for Subway Surfers. But it is a really great online creator that really pushes the boundaries of what websites can be, and I really love to see them. But that's everything we have for today. So I just want to say thank you guys for watching. As always, it's a pleasure to have you here. My name is Ryan Selvy. You can follow me on Blue Sky, ryanselvy.com. You can follow me on Instagram as just Ryan Selvy. I will be back again, same time, same place next week. Stay tuned on Adobe Live right now for Office Hours, which is coming up, which is going to be a really good time. And then make sure you guys, follow, subscribe, you name it. Thank you to Wade for moderating. Thank you to everyone that's in the chat, both on YouTube and Behance. It's a pleasure to have you guys here. And thank you to everyone that's watching the replay. Make sure you leave a comment to let me know that you watched, so we can just, tell that you're around. But thank you all. I hope you guys got some good stuff. And make sure you check out the Raindrop if you want to click the links for yourself. All right, guys. See you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.